As a driver, no matter where you go, whatever you haul, even working or not, one thing is a constant: the driver's daily log. This topic is a widely questioned and oftentimes confused parts of a driver's job. And though many of you may in fact be doing most of it correctly, even one driver in your company making errors on a logbook can open the door to carrier infractions, hours of service violations, and worse. During this training presentation, we hope to shed some additional light on what is required on logbooks, as well as many of the frequently cited violations. It should be noted that there are several ways to accurately complete a logbook, and your company may have additional training on how they want you to complete it. This presentation is designed as a reminder of what we see continually during compliance audits and the feedback from compliance officers. And hopefully by the end, you'll have a better and deeper understanding of the importance of an accurate logbook. With that said, let's get on with the training. The regulations that will follow during this training can be found under the U.S. DOT's Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration's Code of Federal Regulations 395.8, or Driver's Record of Duty Status. 395.8a states that, except for a private motor carrier of passengers, every motor carrier shall require every driver used by the motor carrier to record his or her duty status for each 24-hour period. Following the rules and protocol laid out in this regulation is important for the safety of not only the driver, but also for the other motor vehicles on the road. And unless your company is currently using an electronic onboard recorder, or you drive within 100-mile radius of your normal reporting location, or work less than 12 hours in a day, you'll be doing this by completing a driver's daily log. There are many different types of driver's logs, based on the type of carrier you work for, but the basic requirements for completing the log is the same. To be sure you're accurately completing this log, and to keep your company from potentially failing a compliance audit of these logs, let's start at the beginning, and go step by step through the process. The month, day, and year seems like a simple enough section. Starting at midnight of the current day, simply list the appropriate date here, corresponding with the on-off duty status. For those that change the log to a noon start date, which is allowed so long as you remain consistent throughout the month, you must show the start date on this section. Something to remember is that you must show a log for every day of the month, whether working or not. No gaps are allowed. However, one infraction frequently seen is how to report multiple days off. For example, if you had 5 consecutive days off duty, you would be allowed to write those dates in the section. But if those consecutive days run into a new month, for example, July 29th through August 2nd, you must show a log date from July 29th through July 31st, and then a new log from August 1st through the 2nd, a frequent error seen on logbooks. The next sections are name of carrier, main office address, and home terminal address. Most companies have pre-printed log sheets with the name of carrier and main office address, but understand that these sections must be filled in, and the main office address is for the headquarters of the carrier. The section that gets some into trouble is home terminal address. This line is for companies with multiple locations. For example, if your starting location is different from the main office address, that address must be shown here. It's not acceptable to simply relist the main office address here if that is not your starting location. You might think, come on, do auditors really check this? And yes, they can and do. There's many ways for auditors to cross-check that information, and it is a violation. Driver's full signature and co-driver's name is next. It's imperative that the driver's signature is on each log sheet. By doing so, you're certifying that all entries made on the log are true and correct. Your signature is done before on-duty status to verify accuracy. It must be legible and not printed. It's a signature. If you have a co-driver, simply write that person's name on the appropriate line. A signature is not needed here. And if no co-driver, just write in none. Total miles driving today is just as it says. You list the total miles you've driven during the 24-hour period shown on that day's log. Based on the type of carrier you work for, there may be multiple boxes here, such as for multi-state mileage, which is required by IFTA, or for drivers on the road from one day's log into the next. A common mistake found here is for a driver to list the starting and ending miles from the odometer. These boxes are not intended to show the odometer starting and ending mileage, but again, only the total miles driven. Beneath the daily mileage is the truck, tractor, and trailer numbers, or unit numbers. This is again an important item for auditors. The driver must list all applicable units for that day's haul. For example, if you had a truck and trailer for that day, the numbers for each of these must be listed. Down a little further, under the Remarks section is an area for shipping documents or shipper and commodity. As another important section, the driver must write in all loads for that day, not just one. When a DOT auditor comes into your facility, they can match the manifest number's timestamps with this logbook, and if they decide to do this and find a discrepancy, it's a violation. And remember, the DOT requires that carriers maintain manifest numbers for 1 year, while IFTA requires 7 years. There are a lot of potential problems they could find in that time span if they should decide to. Take this one serious, and be sure that each and every document number is listed accurately here. Now, to the most important and the most frequently mismanaged part of the logbook is the total hours section. In this section you'll find a 24-hour period, usually starting at midnight, although sometimes changed as we said before to noon. Each hour is divided into 15-minute or quarter-hour grid lines, used to help manage a driver's hours. Along the left side is the status, including off-duty, sleeper berth, driving, and on-duty, not driving. As you may already know, and for a quick summary, this section of the guidebook is how a driver monitors all activity within a 24-hour period, whether working or not, and is used to track hours of service, which we discuss in detail in another training. On the right side of this section are total hours, wherein you log the total time spent in each of these 4 duty status areas, and will always equal 24 hours. Otherwise, you've got yourself a calculation problem. It's important to note that this section must be kept clean and legible, and if any changes are made to the log, the driver must initial the change. Let's now look at an accurate, however brief, example of this section. We'll assume that this driver was off duty until 3 a.m. We draw a line across from midnight till 3 a.m. At this time, the driver goes on duty, not driving, at his home terminal in Martinez, California. We draw a straight line down to on duty, not driving, and in the remarks section, draw another line showing his starting location, which must be indicated clearly and show both the city and abbreviated state. The driver performs his pre-trip, which is usually indicated as a 15-minute inspection. The pre-trip must be labeled on the remarks section. At 3:30, the driver leaves for another location. We draw another line straight up to driving, and then indicate how long the driver was on the road. 45 minutes later, the driver arrives in San Rafael, California, where he will load. We draw a line down to on duty, not driving, which takes 30 minutes. Indicate in the remarks section the city and state, and that this is where he loaded. Remember that loading time is both waiting to load and actual loading time. After the 30 minutes for loading, the driver leaves for a delivery to Green Bay, California, which takes 45 minutes. Line up to driving, 45 minutes shown. Remarks of Green Bay, California. Finally, the driver takes 45 minutes to return to the yard. When there, he refuels and conducts the post-trip inspection, which is required again to be listed on the log. A short day in this example, but the driver is done and now off duty, and he makes the appropriate line on his log. Okay, our log is complete except for the last step. We need to count the total hours for each duty status. Starting with off duty, we count the total hours, which in this case equals 19.5. There are no hours logged for sleeper berth, so we know total hours are 0. Adding up the driving time, we count 2.25 or 2¼ hours. On duty, not driving hours, we again count 2.25 hours. With the hours for all 4 duty status sections complete, we need to simply add those numbers together to be sure the total number equals 24. If not, we'll need to recount, as we would have obviously miscalculated somewhere. What we now have is an accurate logbook free from errors and potential infractions. But let's pause here for just a moment.